Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a review for you of this big guy right here. This is the Tudor Watch's Black Bay Bronze on the Nato Strap. First off, though, I want to thank my buddies over at Lewis Jewelers in Ann Arbor, Michigan for loaning this guy my way to check out. Lewis Jewelers is my AD for Tudor, Omega, Breitling, Tag, Seiko, and a whole bunch of other brands, and they could be your AD too. Call DK, tell him Nick sent you. He can help you find the Tudor you want and help you out with any of those other brands as well. They're great folks. They've done great by me and I think by a bunch of my viewers, and that's a beautiful thing. But anyways, so thank you, Lewis Jewelers. Next thing, let's do some size do some size measurements. The best measurement I can give you is big. Right, this is a big old freaking watch right here. If we go ahead and do some measurements, we see that this comes in at 43 millimeters every day of the week. It comes in lug-to-lug distance is a 52 millimeter. Oh, boy, this is a big one in that department. In terms of height, including the Nato strap, which, by the way, you should include in this kind of a measurement, is 15.8 millimeters. That's definitely a thing. And then the lug width on this guy, in case you were doing aftermarket lugs, is coming in at 23 millimeters, which is big. So this is absolutely a large watch. Then I want to do two quick size comparisons real quick. First off, against the Tudor Watch's Black Bay 58, which is the Black Bay, except at a size that is wearable by your average human. Sorry, that's bias. But anyways, what we can see here is the Black Bay 58 is substantially smaller on every dimension. And then here it is against another watch that is a little bigger than it needs to be, but not quite this big. That is the Omega Seamaster Professional 300. What we see here is this is a thicken. This is a very, very tall watch. So anyways, there you go. Then finally, this is a quick review. This guy has been on my table for about 48 hours. And then I'm going to be sending it home. And I haven't been wearing it extensively because I want to keep it in great shape for the eventual owner for it. But this has given me a chance to check it out in the metal, so to speak, to poke and prod and test what I need to do. But, do keep that in mind. This is not I've worn this for 18 years. What do I think? It's not this kind of thing. So let's go ahead and jump into the good, the great, the bad, and the ugly of this very interesting little watch right here. So on the good side, this is a bronze watch. That's not necessarily going to be amazing to every person, but by God, it's going to be interesting to some, right? It is bronze, and that means that not only does it have some mild antimicrobial properties, but it looks different, right? And it doesn't look gilt. It doesn't look as blingy or flashy, but it definitely carries a little bit of a different aesthetic. And I know for some people, especially if you tie it to steel, this could feel like a really nice piece there. So that's very good. Interestingly, though, the case back on this guy is not, actually, no, I'm not going to pull that off. I'll just kind of show this off to the side. The case back on this guy is not bronze. We see it looks very different. This is a PVD colored steel. So it's meant to look bronzy, but it is not actually bronze itself. And so that is, PVD is, oh, good God. Something vapor deposition. Either way, it's a process that it puts coatings on steel that are going to be durable. But anyways, that's not actually bronze, but that's okay. But anyways, so there you go. Speaking of drilled lug, or well, showing the drilled lugs, this has drilled lugs. What that means is that it's very easy to remove the strap from this guy. Rather than having to dick around with a little spring bar tool and try and get your way in there, all you do is you poke the little tool into the little hole there, and that allows you to push the spring bar out, and that just makes swapping bracelets roughly a million times easier. This is something that I really appreciate seeing on any watch, but especially on these kinds of tool watches, and especially one that doesn't come with a bracelet, you kind of want to be able to do that relatively regularly. So the drilled lugs are a beautiful thing. Next thing, this has a weirdly strong crown. This is kind of a strange thing to say about a watch, but it does. Winding this guy, there is just zero play in any direction. And when you pull the crown all the way out, which, by the way, stops the second hand, this is a hacking movement, it still feels very, very secure. So this is a crown that feels just amazingly strong, durable, etc. And given that it is a screw-down crown as well, there is no objection there. I appreciate that very, very much. And by the way, the engraving on the crown itself, yeah, that's pretty classy. I like that. That's good. So the crown is very nice. Next thing, this has a nice bezel on it. This has an aluminum bezel in there. And although aluminum is going to scratch up a little bit more readily than some of the ceramic bezels you've got out there in the world, I have to say the bezel works well. It has very little play, which I appreciated. And the other nice thing I appreciate is that the color of the indices, if you will, the color of the writing on the bezel matches very nicely the color of the case. And so that's good. I appreciate the bezel on this guy, and that's good. That's redundant. I already said it was good, but nonetheless, it remains very very good. Next thing, 200-meter water resist. Says right there, 200-meter or 660 feet if you enjoy silly units. What that basically means is you do not have to worry about water with this guy. Even if the seals start to break down, you're probably going to be just fine, although you should get your watch serviced on a regular basis. That is a beautiful thing. This is a watch that you could absolutely dive with, even if, if you felt like you wanted to go that route. Next thing, this has a sapphire crystal. At this kind of a price point, it better, but it absolutely does, and that's a beautiful thing. Next thing, the Nato strap that this guy comes on is actually unusual, and it's effortful. Usually, Nato straps are just like, oh, hey, look, I threw some buckles on a cord and on a piece of thing, and this is different. Instead of having a big, thick keeper that comes on the other side, in fact, what we see here is that the watch's spring bars are actually underneath, like they are kept in a pocket within this strap. So the strap itself has a two-layer construction, and there are pockets that move, that keep the watch in the proper position, which means that even if this guy is off the wrist, it's not able to come off of this strap, which is kind of a nice little detail. And then the metal accoutrements on this are actually very nice. We can see that they have chamfered the edges of this NATO bar, which makes the NATO strap actually a great deal more, frankly, just nice to wear and to have in your life, generally speaking. That's good. And then the clasp on this guy has the top of the Tudor shield, which we can see right there. See, these two things match. That's kind of a nice thing. But it works well. It's got, nice action. I am actually pretty impressed with this guy. Usually factory NATOs are just like, wow, you saved a lot of money. Congratulations. But in this case, actually, I feel like they went the extra mile, and I do appreciate that very much. Even the edges of the NATO are sewn over, which that's nice. So the NATO strap on this guy is actually pretty effortful, and that kind of caught me off guard. Next thing, the movement on this guy is good to go. It is a mechanical watch. You can see here it is ticking along at many times a second, and there are no batteries or anything. This is just powered by springs and the movement of your wrist. It is an automatic movement, which means that it will be winding itself on the basis of your wearing, but it is a Tudor in-house movement. Pardon me, this is the MT5601. This is a movement that is unique to the Black Bay Bronze, and it has a 28,800 beat rate. That's beats per hour. It has a hacking seconds feature. If you pull the crown out, the seconds stop, allowing you to set the time very precisely. It has a silicone balance spring to reduce the effects of magnetism on your mechanical watch. It is chronometer rated, which means you are able to be guaranteed a very accurate running, and it has a 70-hour power reserve. That means you take this guy off your wrist, and it will run for 70 hours, assuming it was fully charged. That is a great thing, because if you want to take this guy off for the weekend, or put it on for the weekend, there's a decent chance it'll still be running midweek when you get to it. So that I really appreciate a lot. Those kinds of power reserves just, they make life easier. So that's good. Then finally, on the good side, the finishing on this guy is quite nice. What we see here are just very nice crisp and clean, also known as crisp edges on the case itself here, which is good. We see very nice little polishes inside these little grooves here. We get nice finishing on the side of the case here. It's just, the case work is very, very nice. The hands themselves have a little bit of polish to them, as do the outside of the indices there, which is great. The NATO elements are beveled, like I already highlighted here, and even the dial on it is very nice. We see it's a little bit of a faded dial in the middle there. Which is great, with the little indices here with the lume in the middle of them. This is just a nicely finished watch. It reads like a luxury watch. So to me, at least, all that is the good. It's got nice finishing, a good movement. The NATO is pretty unusual and pretty effortful. It has sapphire crystal, as one would demand at this kind of a price point. It has 200 meters worth of water resistance, a very nice bezel, a super strong crown. I don't know if it has a strong crown. No crown was included in the package I got. It has drilled lugs. The case back is not bronze, but the watch itself is. On the great side to me is the face of this watch. This right here, this is pretty. I say that for a bunch of reasons. This is a very, very attractive watch face. I kind of zoom in here a little bit. What we see here is that the face itself is kind of a Payne's gray. It's, depending on the angle you're looking at, it's either a gray or maybe a dark blue or something like that. It's got little hints of that going on. You can see that it is a little bit lighter on the inside than on the outside here. It is super legible with the Tudor Snowflake handset, the 936, as well as great lume. I'm going to charge this off camera with a pretty powerful flashlight here. That way you can see There we go. You can see just the extent to which this loom rocks. This is serious business loom right here. The loom on this watch is luminous, as you might expect. And so, as a result, this is going to be legible all night long, complete with your 936, as well as a 12 o'clock marker that tells you what time it is. Well, it orients you to the watch, even in the dark. That is a great thing. And frankly, to me, the great thing about this is this watch face. I just love this part right here. I think that's really attractive, and I would love to see this kind of a watch face brought down to a reasonable size in like the 58 line too. But anyways, to me at least, that's what's great here. The bad side, it is bronze, so the bronze will patina a little bit. This is brand new in box, but after a little while, you're going to start seeing a little bit of fading, a little bit of patina, a little bit of natural, wabi-sabi, so to speak. That might bother you. That might be a joy for you, but it's something you want to keep in mind. Next thing, there is no date on this guy. This is something I've become increasingly okay with as I've had more mechanicals in my collection. Just makes it much quicker to set the guy, right? Because you take it out if it's not running because you haven't worn it in a little while. All you need to do is figure out what time it is right now. Doesn't matter, AM, PM, whatever. Just set it, hey, okay, cool, it's 10:10. And then wait for the second hand to match the second hand to your reference space, and bazoom, you are good to go, all set. So I appreciate very much that you've got that less reduction in complexity. There you go. That's the words I wanted. But it can be a bit of a demerit for some. Next thing, this has a closed case back. And given that it's got a NATO strap on there, having a beautiful sapphire open case back wouldn't make that much sense. But it is kind of a shame that you don't get to see the movement in these guys. This is a Rolex jam, effectively. I mean, Tudor is Rolex's innovative brother, I suppose. And, so that's a thing. But nonetheless, it is, that's something to keep in mind. Next thing, the bezel on this guy is aluminum. That's fine, but what it does mean is that relative to a lot of your ceramic bezel watches, like the Omega here, this is going to take scratches a little bit more readily. So that's something to keep in mind. Speaking of durability, check out the crystal on this guy. This is a big old domed crystal here. For some folks, that's a beautiful thing. That's a feature. For me, it kind of bugs me a little bit, honestly, because, look, what that means is you're much more likely to actually hit crystal. If you hit this guy off a doorknob or something like that, a watch like this, where the crystal is reasonably hidden down in there, is going to be much harder to make contact with the sapphire itself. And given that sapphire can occasionally shatter if you really put a whack to it, I don't particularly love that. So there's that. To me, that feels like a vulnerability. Next up, this has no bracelet option. It has an option for either a leather strap or a NATO strap. You can get both of those. Both of them are handsome. And the NATO is pretty well done, but it's a little bit weird to pay $4,150 for a watch with no bracelet. I don't know. I'm a bracelet fan, and I know that the high-end dress watches, of course, don't come with bracelets, but to me, that's a little bit off, and I'd like to see the price a little bit lower, given that. And speaking of which, the price is up there. It's $4,150. Now, look, the watch is not cutting too many corners. I see the effort. I see it even in places like the NATO strap, etc. They're working to earn this price point. But when I was just handling this, guys, I was writing up my review, and before I looked at the price online, I figured this guy was coming around $3,500. And actually, the used market seems to agree. That's about where these guys are selling used these days. But $600 seemed to have snuck into the retail price somehow. This is one of those cases where having a great relationship with your AD can make a watch make a lot more sense. But to me, this price is coming in a little bit higher than I'd hoped and than I had expected, and as a result, that's not amazing. And then finally, on the bad side, this is sort of, I'm going to get things like, Nick, it's big, that's its point, but it's big. This is a big boy, both on the lug dimension, on the width dimension, and especially, we'll get there, on the height dimension, but you just need to be a bigger human to rock this guy. On my 6.75-inch wrists, absolutely not. This looks like I stole Daddy's watch and wore it to school, you know? That's not great. And so to me, at least, on the bad side, this is a really big boy, so you need to be a big human to wear it. It's $4,150. There are no bracelet options here. It has exposed crystal edges, which is not necessarily amazing. An aluminum bezel, closed case back, no date, and the bronze will patina. On the ugly front, this is tall. This is really tall. Oh my God, it has a thick case. It has a thick case back. It has a thick NATO strap underneath it. The last thing this needs is something else underneath it. right? It's not even that it is objectively all that much taller than, say, the Omega Seamaster here. It's a little bit, but it's not all that much taller. But the tall sides just highlight it. This thing, it feels like a freaking aircraft carrier sticking up out the wave with this vast expanse of... this thing is huge. And then the lug thing, too. If you look at this guy, the NATO strap, I certainly get it, but the NATO strap feels weird because you've got these lugs like a freaking canyon here. So it's like diving 10 feet down to get to where the NATO strap is. And as a result, you have these surfaces which can very easily catch on things. Even in my limited time of wearing this guy on the NATO, again, to respect the owner there, this was absolutely, these are a thing, right? And so this felt like, to me, on my relatively small wrist, like I got a freaking battleship on my wrist. And so if you do not love that height, if you do not want something that is large and in charge, if you do not love a huge, tall watch, you are going to hate it. And this tallness has always felt like the biggest problem with the Black Bay. This is an amazing watch, but 20% thinner would be a really, really good watch. So to me, at least, that's what's ugly here, is that this and all the Black Bay line just feel needlessly tall. And especially knowing that Tudor can do the Black Bay 58 with a movement that is remarkably similar in terms of power reserve and every other thing. Why didn't they? That bugs me. So to me, at least, what's ugly here is that in addition to being big, which some people might enjoy, this is just tall. It's huge. So, to me, that is the ugly. On the final conclusion front, this is a watch that I think is actually quite neat. It's a cool watch. It's got a nice case with an interesting material, some very nice features, some good water resistance, a surprisingly nice little NATO strap, good movement, good finishing, and a really, really pretty face. You gotta love the face on this guy. It is absolutely going to patina a little bit. You might miss the date. You might miss the open case back. The bezel has some scratching potential. The crystal is kind of out in the wind there. There is no bracelet. The price is a bit high, it's big, and it is so tall that the crystal is risking getting hit by low-flying birds. It's maybe a bit of an exaggeration, but by God, does it feel that way. To me, at least, this is kind of an easy pass. Hey, I don't particularly love bronze on watches, right? I don't care for patina, just generally in life. I tend to also prefer bracelets, and this watch is just so far out of my size range, it is hilarious. You know, putting this guy in my wrist, it was like, ooh, okay, well then. But the thing is, so there is zero chance of this guy sticking around. The Black Bay 58, oh yeah, that tempts me. This guy, I get why some people love it, but it ain't for me. But I acknowledge, it is a good watch. In fact, my buddy Ryan has one, loves it, and rocks it really well. On his wrist, it makes sense. It works. And even though it's tall, I feel like that could be shrunk just objectively. Guys, 3 millimeters less in this, it'll be a better watch. Just trust me on that one. But nonetheless, this is one of those watches that's going to be a you-know-if-you-want-it piece. You will know if you are interested in bronze. You'll know if you want a bracelet. You'll know if you're willing to pay this price, and you'll know if this size fits you. But if you're watching this, and if this guy is calling your name, if you're looking at this and going, oh, yes, I want every part of this, put this on my wrist now, then absolutely I am 100% sure that the Black Bay bronze could get more than third place in your heart. Get it? Bronze medal? No? Because it's bronze and it's a medal. And you get bronze for third. Anyways, I digress. Hope this has been interesting to you and that you have yourselves just an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.